Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Now, remember what I said yesterday? That every day there will be a conclusion to memorize, and that if you're able to memorize all 5, and remember it when I suddenly quiz you during a Friday chapel, you will win a Norwegian chocolate. Now, those of you that have had classes with me before, you know that Norwegian chocolate is brown gold. That is the best thing you have ever tasted. And I know for a fact that Crystal, she's probably going to at least try to win one. Now, I have several, so there can be more than one winner. But I do recommend that you try to memorize it as I have written it. Because if there's too many winners, I will have to prioritize those that actually did it word by word. Up on the second floor in the building, there's an opportunity to make small notes and stick it on the wall. And I read this morning that there was a counter-argument to something that I presented yesterday. Now, I don't shy away from a good discussion. In fact, I love it. So I appreciate that you're able to phrase questions back. Now, the question was about this. Just because we don't understand the numbers, and we saw some huge numbers yesterday, doesn't mean that the universe that the universe doesn't. Well, I have 2 answers to that. Well, one, if you're saying that the universe understands the numbers, you're kind of saying that the universe has the ability to think and understand. But if you believe that the universe has the ability to think and understand, you are believing in a higher power. You're believing in a kind of God. But I assume that you mean that the numbers just work in nature, even though you don't believe that the universe has the ability to think, the numbers just turn out to work. I have an answer to that. You are also saying that you don't understand the numbers and you cannot. That is you admitting that you believe in Big Bang on a blind faith. You are taking Big Bang by faith because you cannot understand it. Now, I have made the claim, I have actually called this entire gospel before a logical faith. Now that is a bold statement, and I dare to make it. What do I mean by a logical faith? I mean a faith that makes sense. A reasonable faith, a faith that gives me answers. And I'm actually willing to make that bold statement that I am taking nothing anymore by blind faith. Because I have found that the faith that I have found, it just makes sense. And it answers every question that I have encountered. I also believe that my kind of faith is very different from what is common among Christians and other believers. Because they take a lot of things by blind faith. They just accept things without getting a real explanation for things. I am different. I'm not satisfied without an explanation, so I have been searching for many years to find answers. And that's why I actually make the bold claim. I have a logical faith. I have a faith that makes sense. And my goal for this week is to show some of those answers that I have found. And like I said, I don't shy away from a good discussion. If you have counter-arguments, you have questions, come talk to me. I will happily take that discussion. I dare to make this bold statement. This was the conclusion yesterday. I will print these conclusions and I will post it outside of my classroom, so you don't have to take pictures of it or try to memorize it in 1 minute. The title for today is The Problem and the Solution. Have you ever been in math class? You see a problem and you think, oh yeah, I got this. I know. And then later when you see the solution to it, you have no idea what happened. That made no sense at all. Have you had that experience? You thought you knew it, and then you're completely lost when you see the explanation. That usually happens when you didn't really understand the problem. You didn't really understand the problem. What I'm saying is, if you want to understand the solution, you need to understand the problem first. Make sense? We're going to look at some problems today. Also, based on yesterday, like I make the claim that it's reasonable to believe that the universe was designed. I make the claim that it's reasonable. The numbers point to it. The beauty in nature also point to it. So let's assume that. Let's assume that there is a God, a designer. Let's ask the question, is that good news or not? Is it good news that there is a God? Yes or no? Is it good news that there is a God? Some are giving thumbs up, some are uncommitted. Does someone dare to say no? I accept that. But I'm looking for a specific word here. I'm looking for a specific word here as an answer. Is it good news that God exists? Well, let me ask this question then. Is it good news that there is a president?
Anarchy.
Is it good news that there is a teacher?
No.
Well, oh, I heard a word. It depends. That is the word I was looking for. It depends, doesn't it? It's good news that there is a teacher if that teacher is good. It's good news that there is a president if the president is good. It would be good news that there is a God if that God is good. Is it good news? It depends. Here's a family. We have a mom, we have a dad, and we have a child. Let's say it's a boy, maybe 5 years old. So he's old enough to talk, old enough to think. They are living a very happy life together. Lots of love. Until one day, mom says, Daddy is actually being an evil. He's only pretending to be nice. What will the child think? Come on, what will the child think?
Okay.
He'll be very confused, right? The child will be very confused because he has no reason to doubt mom. But he also has no reason to doubt dad because dad has not been evil to him before. This is actually similar to what happened when evil came into the world. Let's have a look at what happened when Satan fooled humanity. I'm going to translate some of the things that the snake said, that the serpent said. Like the serpent said, has God really said you shall not eat from any tree in the garden? What is he saying? What is he actually saying? He's saying, wow, is God really that unfair? I mean, look at all these trees and you cannot eat from any of them. Oh, that is such a shame. That is so unfair. And he continues with, you will not die. Because the woman answered that, no, we can eat from many trees except one, but if we touch that one, we will die. But then the snake replies, you will not die. No, that is false. What is he saying? He's saying, God is lying. You cannot trust him. You cannot trust God. He also says, God knows that when you eat of it, you will be like him. What is the serpent saying actually? He's actually saying, it's better for you not to trust God. You should not trust God. It will benefit you if you don't. Because God does not actually want what is best for you. That's what the serpent was saying. The first sin that happened in the world was not really about eating the fruit. It wasn't. It was about what God is like. Satan was selling them an idea that God has been fake with them. That God is actually not good. Let's return to this family here. What shall Daddy do?
Beat up the mother. Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Go one milk.
I have a couple of suggestions. Do you want to hear?
Only for milk.
What if daddy kills mom?
See, exactly.
Will that solve the problem?
No, he's evil.
Like, no mom, no problem.
Yes.
Do you think the son will be convinced by that?
Cool experience, right?
Yeah, I know experience.
I don't. I think that that will be showing that the mom was actually true.
It depends.
Get another mom, easier.
I have another suggestion. So it was not a good idea to kill mom. That would just prove the mom right. What about if dad says, no, no, I'm not scary, and then he does nothing? Problem solved? No. Okay, so that didn't work either. What about daddy buys a bike?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for who?
For who? That's a
For
question.
who?
For the son.
Bet.
Or buys an ice cream, like you said, or 2 chocolates.
Fiber.
Will it really solve the problem?
No.
Not really. Do you agree with me that solving this is going to take time? This is not an instant fix. It's going to take time. We start life with a blurry image of what God is like. We are not really sure what God is like. When we first hear about God, we are intrigued. We are interested. Because a being with superpowers sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. But on the other hand, we're a little afraid. Because we're not really sure if He's on our side or not. It could be bad news. I mean, if that God with superpowers is not good, if He could suddenly turn on us, that would be bad, wouldn't it? Here is the main problem. Humans are afraid of God. They're not really sure what God is like. Humans were infected with the idea that God is not good. What can God do? What did God do to fix that problem after Satan made that problem?
Kill Satan.
Kill his own son.
Is it enough to say, I'm not scary, I'm God? No, we already discussed that that is not enough. And God gave us the Bible, but that is not enough. The Bible doesn't fix the problem. God has done 2 things. Number 1, He let Satan live. Because He let the universe see the consequences of sin. He gives Satan a chance to live, gives sin a chance to exist, and the universe can see if that's good or not. Let me ask you this. Is the world becoming a better place or a worse place?
Depends.
Most people say worse.
Better.
And I agree with that. It seems to get worse. There's more problems every year.
Inflation.
The second thing God has done is Jesus. Because Jesus actually solves the problem. And let me explain you why. Who was Jesus? Now here are some Bible verses about what Jesus came to do. So look here, focus. What was the point of Jesus? Colossians 1. The Son is the image of the invisible God. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. The truth about what? Truth about what? Who God is. What God is like. John 1. No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is Himself God and is in closest relationship with the Father, has made Him known. Jesus made the Father known. John 14. The one who has seen me has seen the Father. That is a bold claim by Jesus. Jesus is saying that if you look at me, you will figure out what God in heaven is like. That's a bold statement. If you knew me, you would know my Father. So Jesus keeps saying this. Satan is convincing us that God is scary, that he's easily angry, he can easily turn on you, and Satan has been very successful. Because billions of people, both Muslim and Christian, say they believe in God, but their image of him is far off. Which means that they're still trapped in Satan's original lie. You see that? They say that they believe in God, but their image of him is completely wrong. Which means they're actually worshipping an idol. They think they're worshipping the right thing, but they're not, because the image is off. What's the difference between the Christian God and all the other gods you've heard of? Nothing, if your image is wrong. Jesus helps you see the true in-focus image. And the more you see Jesus, the more you see that God is what he says he is. So, what is Jesus like? We're going to have a look at two stories here that helps tell us what Jesus was like, what he is like. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery." Now, adultery is having sex outside of marriage. And that was completely illegal in Israel. So they bring this woman, who was guilty, to Jesus to see what is he going to say. They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. It seemed like he's ignoring them. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Now, I love it when Jesus has one of these statements like this, because it's so surprising and it just completely changes the situation. And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground, like seemingly ignoring them again. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time. The older ones first, until only Jesus was left. With the woman still standing there, Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. And watch this. "Neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and live your life of sin." Now, let's go back. According to Jesus, who is allowed to punish her? People without sin. Who is without sin?
God.
God and Jesus.
Yeah.
So the only one there that is allowed to punish is Jesus. Is Jesus interested in punishing her?
No.
No.
I mean, yes.
What does Jesus want?
Jesus wants to, I don't know.
Jesus wants the woman to stop hurting herself. This is God. You are hurting yourself by sinning, but God doesn't want to punish you for it. If He wanted to, He could have. God is not looking to punish you for mistakes, He's looking to save you from it. God does not want to punish you. Let's jump to this story here. It's about Jesus being arrested and then later being crucified. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived. With him a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer, Judas, had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," so big, and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." Jesus is betrayed by one of his close friends. Judas has been close to him for over 3 years. Jesus knew Judas would betray him, yet he still gave him a place as a disciple. He was patient with him and loved him. And even when being betrayed, Jesus is being kind to him. He's not angry. He's sad for Judas, since he was a friend. He's sad because he has sympathy with them. Later on, then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. Now with that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. So one of the disciples, he doesn't want Jesus to be arrested. He takes out a sword and is going to fight for Jesus. And he cuts off an ear. But Jesus says, no, put your sword back. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Now watch this. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? Now that is awesome. But how then will the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way? So look at this. Jesus, like a superhero, could easily have escaped if he wanted to. Do you agree with that? He could have easily used his power to fight and get away. But that would be selfish. And that's not in his nature. Jesus is saying, don't fight. I'm here to be caught and killed. Jesus is being arrested, but who's in control here? Jesus is in control. This is later. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand. Then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They're making fun of him. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. Jesus is innocent. But in this trial, he doesn't defend himself. He's silent. Why? Because he's choosing to be killed. Again, he could have gotten out, but he chooses not to. He's being tortured and mocked, but he's still patient. That is incredible. He's still patient, and he's not using his powers to escape. This is after he has been crucified. He's up on the cross. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself! Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the king. Let him come down now from the cross and we will believe in him." Would you have stayed on the cross if you had the power to get down? You're nailed to wood and you're hanging from it, and you hear this. That is incredible patience. What did Jesus do? He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." This is what God is like. This is what God is like. Why? Why would Jesus accept such treatment? I mean, if he's God, why would he sink so low? Why? To show the world what God is like. To fix the problem. In order for you to have a chance to be saved. Look, if Jesus had shown his true powers there and put them all in their place, he would have failed. Because that would have been selfish. And God is not selfish. God cares more about others than himself. Does God have unlimited power? Yeah, he does. But that doesn't define him. What defines God is love. The defining characteristic of God is not unlimited power. The defining characteristic of God is love. Now, if God is like Jesus, think with me here. If God is like Jesus, what exactly are you afraid of? be afraid of. Then you have no reason to doubt that He will forgive you and get you to heaven. Because coming to heaven is not something that you do, it's something that God does. Your job is to trust Him. Your job is to trust the promises He has given. And by realizing God is like Jesus, you're not afraid of Him anymore. You dare to approach Him. You dare to have a relationship. Right now, take a moment. Take your index finger and stick it into the side of the person next to you. If that person is ticklish, do it again. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now let me have your attention again. It is Satan's image of God that has been widespread in the world. That God is authoritarian. He's hard to please. He's stern. He looks for your mistakes to punish it. And he's often angry. He gets easily angry. And he punishes mistakes unless he is given an offering. You need to give him something good so that he will be nice to you. And even Christians today have this image. God is someone to be afraid of, according to that image. But this is the same original problem Satan started. What is God like? Jesus proves that God is love. This is the creator of the universe, yet He sacrificed heaven for you to give you a chance to see the truth. Look, no one doubts that Jesus existed. There is no historian in the world that denies that Jesus existed. There's too many sources. But what people might say is, Jesus was a great teacher, but He was not God. Have you heard that before? Jesus was a great teacher. You know, that is actually not possible. Let me tell you why. Jesus was saying that He was God. Jesus was making the claim that He is God. That means either is Jesus a crazy person, or Jesus is right. There's no in between. When He's saying that He is God, He's either correct, or He is a crazy person. Jesus proves that God is love. So, is that the only reason Jesus came? No, it's not. It's one of the major reasons. There is actually more. There is another reason. Do you think you are good? Do you think you're a good person?
Yes.
Some say no. Some say yeah. Could be worse. Look, have you ever tried to be perfectly good?
No.
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 Oh, some have not. Have you tried to be perfectly good for one whole day?
No.
No.
Were you able to?
No.
You know, only those who have really tried to be good know how bad they really are. I'll say that again. Only those that have tried to be good know how bad they really are. You don't figure out how strong the wind is by laying down. In the same way, you only find out how deep the darkness inside you is if you try to stand up to it. But you might be telling yourself that, I'm not too bad. I haven't killed that many recently. I rarely lie. I mean, it could be worse, right? It's not like I'm Hitler or Joseph Stalin. Could be worse. I used to tell myself that. Let me tell you about the Stanford prison experiment. This was an experiment done at Stanford University in California in 1971. they did is, they took a lot of volunteers, college students, and they were going to make the entire basement of a building into a play prison. They got a lot of volunteers. And what they did is, like, hello everyone, you are now going to be prisoners and you're going to be guards. And then they went, prisoner, 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 guard. Prisoner, 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 guard. Along all the people. Here are the keys. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Enjoy. And then they wanted to see, like, what would happen if you play prison with normal people. And these are completely normal people. This was supposed to be a 2-week prison simulation. They had to shut it down after 6 days. Do you know why?
Police brutality.
They had to call it off after only 6 days because the guards became so evil, so demeaning, so vile, that they actually should have stopped the experiment a couple of days earlier. They would beat their prisoners half to death. They were former classmates. And they would beat the other people half to death. They would take off their clothes, demean them, force them to be naked and do terrible things to each other. And they were not strangers. They were fellow students. Within 6 days, several of the prisoners had actually forgotten who they were. They started referring to themselves by their prisoner number. And they started to believe that they had actually done something bad and deserved to be in prison. They forgot it was a simulation. Like, how could this happen? But why? Like, they didn't choose bad people to be the guards. Why would the guards become so evil? So the quest for the main professor became to explain why. Like, why did the chosen guards turn on their friends and become so evil? Let me translate the results to you. Let me say it this way. What is the difference between you and Adolf Hitler?
He's German.
What is the difference between you and Joseph Stalin, or insert any historic evil person you can think of?
He's Russian.
Okay, listen. Do you want to know what the difference is? The difference between you and the worst people that have ever lived is opportunity. Opportunity. That's it. They became pure evil because they could. They became pure evil because they thought they could. They thought there would be no consequence. You mean no one's watching me? And let's admit it, that's how you work too. You cheat on tests when you think you can get away with it. You lie when you think you can get away with it. You smoke on campus when you think you can get away with it. And guess what? You would also kill if you thought you would get away with it. You're lacking the opportunity. That is a bad thought, isn't it? That's not a comfortable thought. Thankfully, you cannot get away with murder. In fact, the only reason some of you might think of yourself as good, decent people is because you haven't had the opportunity to prove yourself otherwise. Fundamentally, you and Adolf Hitler are the same. He's just more of what you are because he had the opportunity. That's quite a gospel week, isn't it? You're being like Adolf Hitler. And it's not just you. It's all of us. All of humanity. Every human, deep down, we are broken. We are fundamentally broken. Truly broken. And we all need to be fixed. Now listen to this. We need a solution outside of ourselves. we have tried to be good. We have tried to be perfectly good, and we cannot. We fail every single time we try. Because broken things don't fix themselves. Trying hard doesn't work, does it? That's where Jesus comes in. Jesus was God, let go of his powers and came as a human, and with God's help, he made a perfect human character. Why? So that he could share it with you and me. With his selfless life and death, he made a fix to our brokenness. Is this brokenness Christianity calls sin? We all do bad, and the degree depends on the opportunity. But we don't have to be fundamentally evil anymore. We don't have to. When we realize our condition, cry over it, and fall at Jesus' feet, we can receive Jesus' life in ours. Paul says, Christ in you, the hope of glory. We can become like Jesus. And Jesus is man, as man is supposed to be. It's a supernatural change. It's a gift from Jesus. You cannot fix yourself just by trying hard. It takes the help of God. And it takes humility. You know, pride is believing you're not too bad. Quite decent. Could be worse. That's pride. Humility is seeing the evil that lives deep within, the brokenness, and realizing you cannot fix it. That is humility. But Jesus' perfection and way of life can be yours, and it's a gift. But this is a two-part gift. One thing is receiving forgiveness. Everyone has heard about forgiveness, right? Everyone has heard about forgiveness. But have you realized yet that forgiveness alone is incomplete? Have you realized that yet? Because it doesn't fix you. Forgiveness doesn't fix you. Forgiveness means that you're accepted as broken as you are. But you staying broken would be sad, wouldn't it? Wouldn't really be a fix. Forgiveness covers your past. Receiving his nature covers your present and future. And with this, you can live right.
Ow.
This is the final Bible verse. 2 Peter chapter 1. By his divine power, God has given us everything we need for living a godly life. Everything. We have received all of this by coming to know him, the one who has called us to himself by means of his marvelous glory and excellence. And because of his glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. These are the promises that enable you to receive his divine nature. The Bible actually promises this. And escape the world's corruption caused by human desires. What is the solution to us being broken? Receiving his divine nature. Receiving his solution. Our nature is broken. We fail every time we try. But he can give us his perfect one. But this is not automatic. You have to ask for it. More info coming tomorrow. This is the conclusion to memorize. It is good news that God exists. Because he's just like Jesus. I'm broken, but Jesus can share his nature. Jesus is the solution. Both to who God is and to our brokenness. This is great news. We have nothing to fear. It is good news that God exists. Because he's just like Jesus. And to get to know God, you should get to know Jesus. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the solution to our problem. Thank you that you were willing to give up being in heaven and be treated so terribly just to give us a chance to see what you are like. Thank you that everything that you want to give us, and I pray that you help the students to keep thinking about this and don't give up on this. Keep thinking until they can find answers that make sense to them. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.